She discarded the documents onto the mahogany table, as if discarding waste. Her tone was monotone. You are now of no use to me. 3 days had passed since she buried her father. Since then, I'd held her as she cried into my chest, her sobs raw and shuddering. She didn't even wait for the earth to cover the casket before striking me in this manner. I collected the divorce papers without flinching, not a blink or a breath. Instead, I stared at the ink, her signature already dry, and uttered, as tranquil as a winter morning, "You won't regret this." She chuckled. A mockery, truly. Her eyes were empty, like hollow wells of currency. She believed she had emerged victorious. But I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. This was a moment I'd foreseen. I allowed it to transpire. You see, such betrayal doesn't occur suddenly. It germinates. It murmurs. It escalates. And I'd been attentive, observant. She thought she'd put her father to rest. She was unaware. She interred her future. Because the will? She never perused it. 10 years ago, I encountered Lena. She was captivating, shrewd, breathtaking, habitually 2 drinks ahead of the crowd. We were insignificant back then, fighting for survival. Striving, dreaming, making ends meet with paychecks that vanished before the weekend. She frequently spoke of the ocean. One day, "I want a place by the shore," she'd say, barefoot on our apartment floor, flipping through magazines she couldn't afford. I pledged to take her there, to construct it from the ground up, if necessary. I worked tirelessly at 3 jobs, sacrificing my 20s in pursuit of dollars. She drifted, jumped from one interest to another, never lingering long enough to label it a passion. Yet, I didn't mind. I adored her. I trusted her. Her father, Franklin Delacroix, did not. A billionaire with old money roots. As cold as a knife. He viewed me as filth beneath his legacy. Upon our marriage, he refused to speak to her for half a year. Claimed I was sapping her potential. He wasn't mistaken. I drained a part of her, the one that depended on handouts and flattery. I encouraged her to construct something with me. Money transforms people in peculiar ways, and when Franklin fell ill, Lena started to alter subtly. There were less displays of affection, fewer meaningful conversations, unexplained late nights, and secrets she kept hidden. One evening, I saw her smiling at her phone quite fondly, a smile that hadn't graced her face in months. Upon inquiry about the source of her amusement, she replied, "Just memes." She had never laughed at memes before. When Franklin passed, I anticipated sorrow. Instead, I encountered apathy. She didn't shed tears at his funeral. Instead, she donned designer sunglasses and appeared disinterested. I observed her texting during the eulogy. 3 days later, she received an inheritance of $379 million. The following day, she served me divorce papers without any discussion or explanation. It was just a stack of cold paperwork and a smug expression that suggested I was obsolete. "You married up," she said. "Be thankful for the ride." I remained calm. I didn't react angrily. I merely watched. Not her. No, I watched everything. Her emails, her call logs. She grew careless, intoxicated by power. She had a new companion. A corporate leech. Likely carried the scent of cologne and a sense of desperation. They had meticulously plotted for months. I stumbled upon their messages on an outdated iPad she carelessly left untouched. "Once the funds are transferred, he will vanish. LOL. He's too dim-witted to foresee what's coming." That's when my sorrow subsided. That's when a more insidious feeling emerged. Not animosity. No, that was too boisterous. I wanted her to learn, and I wanted it to hurt. First, I paid a visit to Franklin's attorney, Thomas Reed. A well-tailored suit and piercing gaze were his uniform. He had never held Lena in high regard. He once mentioned she lacked patience and depth. I sought clarification regarding the will. With a smile, he replied, "You're sharper than you appear." It turned out that Franklin had rearranged everything before his passing. He, too, observed the transformation in Lena. She believed she would inherit it all due to their bloodline. Yet, she failed to contemplate why Franklin began inviting me for lunches. Why he sought my opinion on trusts, assets, and taxes. Why suddenly he showed interest in my small investment company. Because I didn't merely marry Lena, I earned Franklin's admiration. He appointed me executor with legal control over the estate under one stipulation: allow Lena to believe she governed it until she demonstrated she was unworthy. Thus, I assumed my part, the silent spouse, the shattered one, the left behind. Simultaneously, I amassed evidence, emails, texts, screenshots, wire transfers. I even enlisted a private investigator to shadow Lena and her new partner. It turned out that he was more impoverished than myself, a swindler. Ideal. I began relocating funds. Not stealing, but safeguarding. Offshore companies, trusts, indestructible prenuptial agreements that Lena neglected to peruse upon our marriage. Since we'll never part ways. She signed blindly. She assumed divorce would liberate her. Instead, it activated the clause that froze her inheritance unless I approved. And I wasn't giving my consent. On the day of the divorce hearing, she sauntered into court donned in a white pantsuit, as if it were her wedding day. Her new companion sat in the audience, grinning like an idiot. I didn't cast a glance at her. Instead, I fixed my gaze on the judge. "Are you contesting the settlement?" The judge inquired. "No," I responded. "However, I wish for the court to examine Exhibit A." Thomas passed over a file. Inside were emails, wire logs, affidavits, evidence of adultery, manipulation, and financial fraud. Her expression hardened. "What's this?" I asked. "It's evidence," I replied, "of deliberate deceit." Her attorney became agitated, attempted to change the subject, but the judge was unconvinced. Then Thomas rose. "There's more," he stated. "As executor of Franklin Delacroix's estate, I have a statement." He produced a sealed envelope. The courtroom fell silent. "This will is conclusive. Lena's inheritance hinges on conditions." The condition? Fidelity and moral conduct within the marriage, until the estate is distributed. She failed both. Her hands trembled. "You're lying," she retorted. "No," Thomas responded coolly. "You merely overlooked the will's details." The judge's gavel fell like a clap of thunder. Lena stood, mouth parched, eyes wide. "Wait, what becomes of the funds?" I then turned to her, studied her, and said, "It returns where it originally belonged." She lunged towards me. "Did you orchestrate this?" "Affirming your statement, you were the one who showed me the way." Thomas chuckled, not in a polite or gentle manner, but with genuine amusement. "Your former companion left through the rear exit hastily. People often question if I harbor remorse, if I yearn for her presence. No, I do not. I miss the image of who she was, the carefree girl speaking about the ocean. However, that girl ceased to exist the moment riches came into play. What I bestowed upon her was compassion. What I gave myself was resolution. The property is under trust now, secure, inaccessible. I acquired a house by the seashore. Franklin's name adorns the plaque. He would have appreciated the vista. As for Lena, she continues to engage legal battles, attempting to mend bridges that were burned. Yet, betrayal is an art. So is retribution. And as for me, I am merely the observer in this gallery of life.